just to kind of give an idea of where it came from, I was looking into, same thing. It was funny to talk about a coincidence with Foucault as well. And then I remembered the Elias effect, and I hadn't had a chance to really look at it recently. And I knew what it kind of said, but I thought it was funny. Anytime you find something that Globers don't pick on, there's a reason. There's something there that we need to explore more. So I went to it thinking, okay, what's causing this anomaly? And so, of course, Wikipedia, what are you going to get out of Wikipedia? You're going to get the mainstream opinion. So then I started searching for the paper that he wrote. I saw that he wrote a paper like against NASA and some other things. Usually what I don't think a lot of people know is one of the best places to go for links is to the bottom of the Wikipedia, right? So the Wikipedia is a summarized mainstream opinion, but then at the bottom they list all their references. So just because, let's say there's a Michelson-Morley paper, the best place to find that would be to go to the Michelson-Morley Wikipedia. They're not going to mention any of the kind of things that you want to read about it in the Wikipedia, but if you go down to the references, then they're going to reference the original paper, right? So I went to the paper for the Elias effect, and I was just reading through it because I've never really understood it, and it actually turned out to be more than I thought it was. This has been tested over and over again numerous times. There's always this anomaly. His quote is that during a total solar eclipse, the direction of anisotropy of space becomes coincident with the Earth, Moon, and Sunline. And then he also, basically says gravity doesn't account for it, and neither does mostly anything. He couldn't figure out what could account for it. But then now I'm having trouble finding. Oh, there it is. Oh, it was on the Wayback Machine. So then I found that paper finally, and I was just reading through it, seeing what he said, and I found the very last page to be quite telling, that he's talking about why he lays out like 4 questions and then gives the answers as to why they don't seem to work. And he says here on the answer to the 4th question, he's talking about his review of what I guess what it's test that he was doing is he was like letting a pendulum go for like 15 minutes and then resetting it and resetting it and resetting it, right? Because if you add all that together, you should get the required turn of a whole day. If you're just doing it every 15-minute segments, how much is it turning each time? So he's talking about here, he says, similarly, when dealing with a period close to 24 hours 50 minutes, nothing justifies the claim that we are dealing with a lunar rather than a solar effect. So I started thinking, wait, what? He said 24 hours and 50 minutes is exactly the time that the moon takes to go around one time. So I said, hold on. I said, he wouldn't have known that. He would have had no clue. So here he's basically discounting the fact that it could be lunar, because what does the lunar have to do with 24 hours and 50 minutes? According to heliocentrists, absolutely nothing. So then I said, wow, could this all be caused by the moon then? The moon takes 24 hours and 50 minutes. So then I was kind of playing with that a little bit, and then it hit me like, wait a second. If that's true, I said, I wonder if the 24 hours and 50 minutes could be divided equally by the year. And so I multiplied 365.25 times 24 times 60 to get the minutes, which comes out to like 525,000 something. And then took the moon time period, which would be 24 hours times 60 plus 50, and you get 1490. And I was just looking at it like, there's no way I'm going to divide this and it's going to come out a whole number, because if it comes out as a whole number, it means that the year can be calculated by the moon. And so I did that division, and sure enough, it came back 352.99. And I was like floored, because that means that 353 moon days makes a perfect year. And I'm assuming that the 0.01 that we are missing is because the 365.25, I don't think is exact. I think it's like a little, that's why we don't have.
It's 365.2422 actually.
Okay, so right. So that's because on the years that end in 00, we don't have leap years. So I knew that it was, maybe that's where the 0.01 is. But anyway, at 353, that's incredible. That just means that there is a perfect way to keep track of days and the year. And that would be, and I was telling my wife, and she was a little confused because she said, well, then the stars wouldn't reset on January 1st. I was like, wait, what? And I was like, no. I said, you're basing that off of a 365-day year. If we went to 353, you would have to eliminate the other days from a calendar, and then you would be perfect. It would still on January 1st, your stars are going to reset, and then you have 353 24-hour, 50-minute days. So that was shocking to me, because I've always heard that you can't calculate the calendar correctly, like I think they say the moon is 354 day year if you count what would that be, 10 or 12 lunar cycles. So that's a little bit off. That's why they say you can't use the lunar calendar. Of course, the measuring it by the day is off. That's why we have leap years. So I've always kind of just chalked it up to it would be impossible to calculate an actual year, but now I know that it's not. So 353. Somebody says Enoch is explained about a 5-year system. Yeah, but see, this is different than Enoch. Even Enoch's wrong, because they're all saying that there's no way to calculate a year, but it's simple. 353 is exactly how many moon days there are in a year.
Wow.
So that, I always wondered, there's these tables called Stark's lunar charts, I think it is, or lunar tables. And it's for, I have it, and it's for using the moon to tell exactly where you are on Earth. By knowing where the moon is, and these charts, with a sextant and a compass, you're supposed to be able to pinpoint exactly where you are. And it's like 300 pages, and 2 pages of it is writing, and the rest is all numbers, just numbers. And I always wondered, well, how can that work? If the moon doesn't line up year after year after year? But yeah, I can see now. That's wild.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, it would be a weird way to calculate the day because obviously we have night and day right now, and so it would be a little bit weird to count the moon, but only because we're not used to it. Right. It's not like there would be a certain time where the moon, but it's not like that. I was going to say there's a certain time where the moon would be in the same place every day. It would progress through that, but it's still a accurate way of telling time. And that's all. There is nothing scientific about a calendar anyway. Calendar is just based off of social norms, if you will.
The Hebrews had a lunar calendar.
The Greeks
they
also
went by that. Yeah,
and the Romans used the moon calendar to pay taxes, to get the payment of the taxes, not the solar, in the first place.
Wow. Yeah, somebody said here, well, I was under the impression there's actually 13 lunar cycles per year with 28 days per cycle, which comes to 364 days. Exactly. Which is wrong though, right? Because a year is 365.25. So no matter what calendar you use, you're always having to add days, remove days. The ones who use a lunar calendar, every so often they have to get rid of a whole month because they have to stay up to date with, otherwise your seasons fall out of place, right? So 364 doesn't work either because and when people say that, when Enoch said 364, he was talking about actual days. Remember, I'm talking about a day that is 24 hours, 50 minutes. So
yeah, and that's how the Hebrews did it. They after the winter harvest, not until then did your new year start. So on that next new moon after the winter harvest, that was the beginning of the year. Sometimes you had 12 months that year, sometimes you had 13. It all depended on the seasons.
Yeah, to me it's just, and Dr. Bass Ackworth just said it, yeah, the leap year being added every 4 years just seems absurd. Right. So I agree. And that's why I've always thought it was weird. Well, why do we have to add this 0.25 days? That it just never even made sense to me. I didn't understand how a year would work. If you're talking about the Earth returning to the same position, how could it return to the same position, but we be a quarter of a day further? Doesn't that eventually catch up to you? Well, they add these leap years to make the calendar right. And I know we don't use them in the years that end in 00 or something like that. So I just always found that weird. So now it just kind of is a little bit more clear that the moon actually can be used almost exactly. I mean, I'd have to figure out where that other 0.01 is, but that's not much of a day.
And supposedly in South American ancient cultures like Maya, they use also a calendar, a fixed calendar of 13 moons, but the days or the month are not counting for 30 or 31 days. All the days in 1 month is 28 days, and they use 13 moon cycles. And in fact, the word month came from the moon because it's already, so there is something there at least to research and trying to. It's clear that the sun calendar was invented by Jesuits, taking other ancient cultures, calculus and things like that. But the fact is, they are created under the solar warships. They used for a lot of things, but maybe there is not the correct clock to measure.
How often do you think it is that people even notice that the months are off as far as September, October?
Exactly.
Oct is 8, so
December
October
is 10.
8th month, right?
Yeah.
December,
November is 9.
November should be the
December is
9th.
10.
Right. So weird. So anyway, that's there's just lots of things like that'll open up the. I was asking Bob this morning. I said, Bob, what was because I know in the Michelson-Morley experiment they considered it a null result, but it wasn't a null result. They actually did get a speed through the ether, but it wasn't the speed that the Earth goes around the sun.